Thanks for coming back around to yet another Full Build Friday. This week, we're stepping into the ring for another high-flying build, featuring a full-figured fighter straight from the streets. If you haven't already guessed it, and/or somehow missed the thumbnail and the title of the video, we're building Zangief from Street Fighter. Before we dive into it, I'd appreciate it if you could leave a like and subscribe, though I understand if you want to wait to see the video in total before you do so. That being the case, let's look at build goals to build this beefy brolic Bolshevik. Zangief is a proud and powerful Russian whose fearsome appearance belies his good nature. A wrestler who trains by tangling with bears, operates as a face, but did spend some time as a heel in wrestling. His fighting style is extremely close range, reliant on a mix of devastating throws and powerful but slow moves. Some of these more notable moves include Banishing Flat, a downward chop that cancels out incoming projectiles. He can also do a short charge with Flying Power Bomb to grab a foe and then slam them into the ground. However, if he's already close, he'll do an Atomic Suplex instead, where he does a grab, suplexes the foe, then flips and jumps into the air for another slam. You might be noticing a trend as we look at his aerial Russian slam, but that's actually about plucking an airborne enemy out of the sky. He takes a break from all these slams with the Cyclone Lariat, which actually causes him to start spinning with his arms extended. The force of this spin draws in enemies as his fists batter them for a multi-hit attack. Rounding out his arsenal is the Bolshoi Stormbuster, where he slams an enemy, lobs them into the air, and then leaps after them. In the air, he seizes them to drive them back down into the earth. Bringing it all together, Zangief is a hulking wrestler who makes up for his low speed with powerful strikes and techniques meant to counter the tricks of his more nimble adversaries. He uses grabs aplenty, bodily throwing and slamming enemies around, but every now and then, he'll just spin and smash his foes. Based on the sheer stature and strength of this Russian wrestler, I ended up using the Orc ancestry. With the hostile Hoarfrost as his home habitat, he uses the Winter Heritage to better weather any cold that he might encounter. Naturally, he'll take the Iron Fist ancestry feat to harden his knuckles and add the Shove trait to them, letting him knock enemies around a little bit easier. For our Orc's free ability boost, we'll increase his strength and dexterity. We want him to be able to go around in just his trunks, but that's simply not practical yet in regards to AC, without first pumping up his dexterity. Given the performative nature of wrestling, I think the gladiator background is the best fit for Zangief. This makes him train in performance and gladiator lore, while also providing him with the impressive performance skill feat. This will let him put on a show to win the hearts and minds of the crowd with his performance skill, which just feels appropriate. He gets his first boost here to his strength, and I want to go again for dexterity with his free boost. When I first received a request to build this character, I took a quick look and went, yeah, sure. But when I sat down to dig deeper into his features and his characterization, I grew worried that the build would end up a little too similar to the rebuilt Sett. Fortunately, after a little bit more consideration, I think I have enough here to make the design distinct, and part of the design of doing so is by building him as a fighter. This is a very simple class that provides him with a boost of strength, reactive strike, and finally a shield block, which he honestly won't be getting much use out of. Now while it does give him that, it doesn't have any subclasses or the like to go through. Instead, we move straight to his class feat, where he'll pick up Vicious Swing. This is great for demonstrating Zangief's slow but powerful fighting style, letting him slam heartily into enemies, though I'll admit, it might not be terribly effective with only his D4 fists. But we'll work on that. I've got some plans in place. In addition to all that, as a fighter, Zangief starts off trained in athletics, and then will also become trained in acrobatics, intimidation, and survival. He then goes and takes his 4 ability boosts to strength, dexterity, constitution, and charisma. These are the 4 main ability scores that we'll be focusing on, making him a physical powerhouse that is fast enough and tough enough to fight foes in his skivvies. Now I promised that we would find a way to increase the damage on Zangief's fist, and we can actually do so as early as 2nd level by taking the Martial Artist Dedication. This bumps their damage die up by 1 step, and it will let him take up some other feats that this build is looking forward to. As for his skill feat, with as massive as Zangief is, he'll use Hefty Hauler. Not because he personally carries a bunch of stuff, but because he needs this so that he can squat the most weight.
It's a church where we max out greatness, annihilate weakness, and discover unrealized swole potential.
Very fittingly, our fantastic fearless fighter receives bravery at 3rd level, enhancing his will saves and making him more resistant to fear specifically. Naturally, the increase from this level goes to athletics to make him an expert in it. He takes toughness as his general feat to bulk up, becoming burlier and beefier to better batter baddies. From his martial artist archetype, Zangief can pick up Gorilla Stance at 4th level, which will let him enter a stance where he can make powerful but slower swings. Notably, these strikes also come with the Grapple trait, which means that as long as he has potency runes on his fist, he'll get a bonus on athletics checks to grapple. Speaking of athletics, he'll grab Quick Jump as his skill feat. Like many of the other characters from Street Fighter, Zangief can make a jump without having to do any lead up, and so this fits in that regard. 5th level kicks off with ability boost to Strength, Dexterity, Constitution, and Charisma. Fighter Weapon Mastery makes him a master with the Brawling Weapon group, and gives him their crit effects whenever he manages to land one. Becomes an expert in performance, and then takes Scar Thick Skin, referencing the host of scars that he has earned from his wrestling practice against the bears of his homeland. Mainly for the sake of closing out on class feats from the martial artist, Zangief takes Follow-Up Strike, though this does actually have a fun interaction with his Forceful trait from the Gorilla Stance. This trait gives him a damage bonus if he's attacked with a weapon more than once per turn. Now if he does a single action Gorilla Slam and misses, he can use Follow-Up Strike for a non-map strike that gets a small bonus damage from Forceful since it would still be his second attack. He'll then take additional lore for wrestling lore, setting him up to be an expert and growing as he levels. This references his connection with the other wrestler-type characters in the franchise, most famously perhaps Rainbow Mika. For his 7th level, Zangief becomes a master in Perception and gets a bonus when using it for initiative, thanks to Battlefield Surveyor. His class also gives him some extra damage through weapon specialization. As a freshly 7th level character, he becomes a master in athletics to be a better grappler, as well as in wrestling lore. Fast Recovery comes in as his general feat, and is going to be part of the typical suite of durability feats that I tend to favor. With at least 2 feats from Martial Artist, Zangief can take a Wrestler Dedication at 8th level. This provides him with Titan Wrestler as a bonus feat, and makes him better at resisting attempts from enemies to grapple or swallow him. In addition to the aforementioned Titan Wrestler, he gains the Assurance skill feat for Athletics, which will let him skip rolling to just take a number. This avoids map, but the value is only really going to be useful against lower leveled enemies with a low Fortitude save. He gains Battle Harden at 9th level, improving his Fortitude saves, and then gains access to Combat Flexibility, which is going to be super important for this build. For now, he can use it to do Sudden Leap, letting him strike down enemies who try to attack him from the air. For his skill increase here, he's going to become a master in Performance. Finally, to round out this level, he takes Athletic Might as his Ancestry feat, allowing him to traverse harsh environments with far greater ease. 10th level means our genial Goliath of a grappler gains ability boost to Strength, Dexterity, Constitution, and Charisma. We do take a quick bounce back to Martial Artist to take Adamantine Body, as Zangief once took a blow from a katana and broke the blade instead of his body. He picks up Powerful Leap as a skill feat, because, look at him. The guy's nothing if not powerful. This mountainous man of muscles manages armor and fighter expertise at 11th level, and also becomes an expert in Intimidation, letting him indulge in some trash talking before the fight begins. Sticking with some more durability type feats, the Geef here takes Robust Health, which will let him heal up faster from the treatment offered by his friends and allies. It's time to start exploring our Wrestler archetype at 12th level, kicking off with Aerial Pile Driver, so that he has his classic slam that we see in the likes of his Flying Power Bomb. Following on that, he uses Triumphant Boast to take advantage of his recent investment in Intimidation, as well as the prior investment he's had in Performance. The Weapon Legend feature at 13th level makes Zangief a legend with his brawling weapons, and a master of pretty much everything else. He follows that by becoming a master in Intimidation as well, and has an Ancestry feat left to pick. he reaches back to first level options for Orc Ferocity. And I will say I don't think this is particularly representative of him, but it does help play into the beefiness that we've been building towards. This colossal comrade captures Crushing Grab as his 14th level class feat, letting him deal damage whenever he successfully grapples a creature. Normally I would skip this because there are other more appropriate feats, but unfortunately he does need this for a future option. Delving more into Intimidation is Intimidating Prowess, letting him feature his fearsome physique to gain an advantage on demoralizing creatures that dare to challenge him, whether inside the ring or out of it. There is a lot to get through at 15th level, starting with ability boost to Strength, Dexterity, Constitution, and Wisdom. Through Tempered Reflexes he becomes a master in reflex saves, and gets more damage from Greater Weapon Spec, a juicy +8 on his brawling weapons, as well as improved flexibility. Again, this is major, because it gives us access to two important options. First off, he can take Cut from the Air to resemble his Banishing Flat. Or, secondly, he can pick up Whirlwind Strike, which is a fantastic fit for his Cyclone Lariat. Notably, it's also one of the few fighter feats that doesn't specifically state that you need to be wielding a weapon. Furthermore, he becomes a legend in athletics and wrestling lore, and then gains Die Hard as his general feat. I couldn't get as much investment in Constitution as I wanted to, so I'm taking these sorts of feats to make up for it because he needed Dexterity instead. Maybe this is a little too similar to Aerial Piledriver, but Suplex is a single action Zangief can take as his 16th level class feat. He obviously takes it to represent his Atomic Suplex, but he can't quite combo it with Aerial Piledriver, because the Suplex action unfortunately causes him to release the target. In regards to his skill feat, he'll use Distracting Performance, letting him put on a gun show and building himself up as a threat so that his allies can move and maneuver around enemies while they're distracted. Our robust Rasslin' Rusky gains Armor Mastery at 17th level, and becomes a legend in performance. I settled on Rampaging Ferocity as his final ancestry feat, letting him try to counter opponents when they seek to finish him off and hang in the fight a little longer. Akin to Crushing Grab, Zangief needs Whirling Throw as a prerequisite, but I think this one is honestly a pretty good fit for him, letting him hurl enemies around the battlefield. Fitting for this legendary wrestler, he also takes Legendary Professional as his skill feat, letting him earn more and attracting people from all over, no matter where he puts on a performance. He's going to continue that very idea with his 19th level general feat, but before that, he becomes a versatile legend with his weapons, as well as a legend in Intimidation. Then, as promised, he takes a home in every port. While Zangief hails from Russia, he has traversed the world over, and made connections with people from just as many places that helps justify this feat. We look to start wrapping things up with 20th level, which starts with ability boost to Strength, Intelligence, Wisdom, and Charisma. This increase to intelligence sees him become trained in nature, based on his wrestling with bears, and because the man honestly is very well read. With Crushing Grab and Whirling Throw in his championship belt, Zangief can take up Godbreaker for the sake of representing his Bolshoi Storm Buster. Based on that idea, while he hasn't used a ton of acrobatics, he'll take Catfall as his skill feat, as he's done a few drops, and it will help save him some damage should he fail to properly execute his Godbreaker. With all that said, this build would be even better in a free Archetype game. Such a game will let him do stuff like actually take Sudden Leap, Cut from the Air, and Whirlwind Strike, without having to rely on his combat flexibility. The archetypes he's invested in still have plenty to offer him as well, with the likes of Gorilla Pound or Echoing Violence from his Martial Artist archetype, or Clint Strike, Spinebreaker, and Inescapable Grasp from the Wrestler. Furthermore, he could take something like Weapon Supremacy as his capstone feat, as well as Godbreaker through his free archetype. Nevertheless, I think that about covers this clinch striking Cossack. But let's go ahead and review what we've put together, and you can decide for yourselves. Zangief is a winter orc fighter with a gladiator background. His heritage reflects the cold climates of his homeland, whereas the performative gladiator feels like the best fit for a world-renowned wrestler. Some investment in Intimidation covers the time he spent as a heel, though he can use it in his role as a face to toss taunts at his foes. While a fighter, he specializes in brawling, and invests heavily in athletics, as well as Gorilla Stance, to be a grappler, while Vicious Swing will let him make slow but powerful blows. Adamantine body makes his muscles harder than steel, able to shatter a katana off of his bare chest. He's a little reliant on combat flexibility to acquire the likes of cut from the air for his vanishing flat, or sudden leap for his aerial rush and slam. Alternatively, he could swap in Whirlwind Strike to recreate the effects of his Cyclone Lariat, spinning and smacking all foes around him, though the concept between these two moves is a little different. Aerial Piledriver is a great fit for his Flying Powerbomb, or he can go for a suplex to pull off an atomic suplex. Finally, he can use Godbreaker to pull off his Bolshoi Storm Buster, lobbing an enemy skyward before following them to deliver the beatings that they deserve. This robust Russian wrestler raises a ruckus against rivals and roustabouts in routine rounds, regularly routing rabble-rousers with roughhousing and raucous rumbling. I'm happy that I could figure this build out, but let me know what you think of it and what other sorts of builds you'd like to see in a comment. If you like what you've seen here and want more, check out the Monster Monday blog, which is linked below along with the Twitter and Discord. Thanks for watching and have a fantastic Friday.
My beautiful body is built